So thank you so much. I want to thank Tad especially for thinking of me and inviting me to be with you here today. So I'm really excited to share my experience and I'm going to talk a little bit about the program I've been coordinating since 2015. So I'll talk about the program's origin story, the program's mission, and then the evolution of our program that came about because of challenges that arose because of the pandemic. So the shift in our program model provided a really exciting opportunity for employees to develop their digital literacy skills in tandem with their English language skills. So first, I'll start off by giving a little background information about Cambria. So Cambria is the only family-owned manufacturer of natural quartz surfaces in North America. Our production facility is located in rural South Central Minnesota. We are located in the Valley of the Jolly Green Giant. So our production facility is over 1 million square feet. We were founded in the year 2000, and we currently have approximately 600 employees working out of our plant. So about a third of those employees are non-native English speakers. For the most part, our learners speak Spanish as their primary language, but we also have many learners from Guatemala whose first language is indigenous dialect. And we've also had a handful of participants who come from French, Tagalog, and Thai language backgrounds. So next we'll talk about how the English program got its start. So in 2014, the president and CEO of the company took note of the fact that there were many employees who had been with the company for a long time, but who seemed stalled in their current roles because they didn't have enough English to move into positions that demanded more verbal communication. And he wanted to provide an opportunity for those employees who'd been loyal and who already understood the company culture. He wanted to give them that opportunity to break through this barrier. So he decided he wanted to provide on-site English classes for employees. And around this time, they were expanding to 5 production lines and had built an area that would be used as a training suite. And initially, the company had considered partnering with a local community college to provide on-site classes, but in the end, they decided they'd rather hire their own instructor, so they'd be able to customize the curriculum and navigate the schedule, which is really quite complex. So our facility runs 24/7, 365, and we are at the mercy of the needs of the business. So they really wanted the flexibility of having an instructor that worked directly for the business. So next I want to talk a little bit about the program mission, because I think that there are some elements to it that might be unexpected, but are really important because they show how Cambria recognizes the impact of the program outside of the walls of our plant. So the program's mission is to add value to the company by challenging, motivating, and inspiring the non-native English speaking employees to develop their language skills so that they can fully participate as members of the Cambria team, so that they can take advantage of opportunities for career advancement as the company grows. So I think those two are maybe elements that are expected, but the next two really showcase the way that Cambria's goals for employees overlap with the goals that ABE providers have when it comes to digital literacy and English. So another of the elements of our program mission is helping non-native English speaking employees cultivate relationships within their communities and also to improve the lives of their families. So as I mentioned, the plant is located in a rural community, and the fact that we recognize the impact the program has on the surrounding community is really important. And then Cambria is proud to be a family-owned company. And there's many people who work at the plant and in our corporate offices who are family or who meet at the company and start families together. So I think this notion of strengthening families is a guiding force in our program as well. So this leads me to 2015 when I was brought on to start the program from the ground up. So I started in June of 2015, and after a lot of learning about the process of making the product and what kind of jobs learners worked in and where there was potential for them to move and the gaps that existed, I began to have systematic conversations with potential learners and assess their language abilities. And at the time, Cambria had separate safety meetings for employees in Spanish. So that was the pool of employees that I started with. So if an employee was regularly opting into a Spanish safety meeting, they got to have a meeting with me. And then later we discovered others who were attending the English meetings who were also interested in improving their language skills. In the end, we decided to begin with the most advanced group because the idea was that they were most likely to be successful. And if we had some success, it would excite other learners and also encourage managers and supervisors. So after we decided we'd begin with the most advanced group, I began to develop the curriculum and materials, and we started with a group of 12 learners across 3 different shifts in October of 2015. Oops. So then in 2016, the program had what I like to call a year of firsts. We had our first ceremony to recognize learners who'd completed the program. And for me, that meant reading at a 9th grade level or higher, according to the CASAS test. We use versions 85, 86 for those of you who are familiar, because that particular version is focused exclusively on workplace related items. And knowing that the first group of graduates was coming, I've been working on developing curriculum and materials for the next group, a group designated high intermediate or level 4 of 5. And in order to be able to offer classes on every shift, we first hired an intern who was a graduate student at a local university, and then later hired another full-time English teacher. So adding staff meant that we could offer classes at level 2, which was a high beginning, and level 3, which was low intermediate, by the fall of that year. And then 2017 through 2019 was kind of like the heyday of our program. So we started offering classes at the lowest level. Classes at the plant actually became mandatory for anyone who is eligible. And we also started offering classes at other local sites. So we have a fab shop just north of the plant, about 15 minutes. And in order to meet the needs of all our learners on all shifts and at so many different levels, we hired 2 additional full-time staff and a part-time teacher as well. So during this time, we were serving about 125 employees. And during this time, our HR team implemented an app where employees could request time off and enroll in employee benefits. And my team supported the HR team in getting learners logged in and enrolled in benefits by the deadline. And although we kind of had assumed it previously, that experience really confirmed that many of our learners really struggled with that digital literacy piece. So it wasn't just an English hurdle, it was also the digital literacy piece. And, you know, from my experience working in ABE programs in the past, I knew how essential this type of instruction was for learners, but it was really hard for us to prioritize the digital literacy instruction because, you know, we only had students for 50 minutes twice a week. And also, I think there was a gap in the level of comfort that the teachers had. You know, I think teaching digital literacy wasn't necessarily something they were excited about or a strength that they had. So that brings me to 2020. So just before COVID hit, we had some major changes in staffing on our team. So one of my full-time teachers had a baby and decided to stay home, and the part-time teacher on our team got a job as a principal. So we were down from a staff of 4.5 to a staff of 3 for the first few months of the year. And then once COVID hit, my team was furloughed for about 3 months. And when they brought us back, we were challenged with figuring out what the English program would look like. And in addition to wanting to keep, you know, people separated, we also had other restrictions. We were no longer allowed to go to the fab shop. We had to stay on site at the plant, and our classroom had been taken over and turned into offices in order to help employees socially distance. So, and then of course there were also staffing challenges. So um, the production lines could no longer afford to pull multiple students at a time for an instructor-led class. So initially, we decided that we'd try a voluntary distance learning model. Um, so I've always made it a habit to make friends with the IT folks at work. So I was able to scrounge up a couple of laptops that were no longer being used. And we showed learners at levels 4 and 5 how to log into a Zoom meeting and set them up with some free programs that they could access on their phones. And the expectation was that they would study at home and then meet with their instructor every other week for 30 minutes to talk about progress or strategies. And we started this model in September of 2020. And so then at the beginning of 2021, we added a handful of learners at level 3 who we thought would be able to handle working independently. And we are also able to start including learners at fab shops and distribution centers throughout the US. So we added learners at our California and Florida locations as well. And although we considered the distance learning program to be a success, given all the challenges we faced, we wanted to be able to expand our offerings to a wider range of learners. And we felt like the learners at the lowest levels of literacy were the most likely to struggle with both digital literacy piece and the piece where they're expected to learn in an unsupported environment. So we started talking about shifting to an open lab model where learners would have access to laptops at a time that was most convenient to their team during their shift. And a teacher would always be there to support them in whatever way they needed. So we also decided that although the free programs had worked to pilot our distance learning program in a pinch, we ultimately were unsatisfied with them because they weren't mobile friendly and because they were really geared toward kids and the content wasn't really appropriate for our learners. So I guess here, this is where we can talk about the beginning of the relationship that we started with EnGen. So we started to use EnGen in August of 2021. So after the demo, I was immediately sold on the product and we've had nothing but the best customer service experience. The texts are authentic and appropriate for working adults, and everyone in our program is enrolled in an English class based on their level, a digital literacy course, and then a third course based on their interest and their level of proficiency. So we decided that we were going to start off with 75 seats. And although it did take us about 6 months to fill them all, we're now at capacity. So we'll be looking to add more seats just as soon as we can get approval. There were some employees to whom we haven't been able to offer instruction post-pandemic due to staffing issues on sold out lines. So one of our goals for this year is to remedy that and at the very least get everyone who wants to participate in Open Lab. And then another thing that our Open Lab model has enabled us to do was to continue our partnership with a local college. So our higher level learners met with college students on Zoom for a language exchange twice a month. So helping the college students practice their Spanish speaking skills half the time and then practicing their English speaking skills half the time. This has been great because then they're getting some focused speaking practice as well.